Yeah. Hello, welcome back. Now more on data wrangling. Let us look at merging data set. Okay, you can make data set by column, by rows. So let us look at, maybe you might get data from different sources, but have similar ID of patients. So you might want to actually merge it. So let us look at how do you go about merging different data set and then using them for your analysis. So again, look at lecture 5, articles. Once you go in there, you can copy and paste and then also practice and follow along. So regarding the data merging, you can just copy everything here. Okay. They're all the way down here. Okay. So you can copy and then you can open a new R script. Okay. So you paste. Okay, so now, first of all, we have to be able to import our data or load our data set, okay? So we are going to make use of the hints data, okay? So again, using this line of code, we can actually import our hints data set using the read.csv function, which has the choose.file function in it. Okay, so let's run this line. So I'm naming the data set as hints data, okay, but you can give it a different name, but it's always appropriate to use a right name in which you can easily track the names which are stored in the environment, okay? Okay, so let's run this line of code. So once I run it, it opens up a window in which within the window, I can find my hint data. But assuming it's not located there, I have to look for the location of the data and then double click it or click on it and then say open. Okay, so my hints data is ready. So now I can decide to say, okay, I want to know the names of the names in the data. So the names of what hints. Okay, so I can tap it and then I can run that line. So there's the names, the columns I have in the data, which is I have 17 columns, okay? And the way in which you can see that your data imported is now active for users. If you look at the environment here, you can see the hints data is there with 3,865 observations and 17 variables, okay? You can equally use what is called a dim function to look at the dimension of the data set, okay? So you click here and now you're able to see the dimension of the data set, which is 300. The first one represents the number of rows and the second one represents the number of other columns. Okay. Okay, all right. So now let us look at, let us start by looking at how can we merge columns, okay? So assuming we have a data of different columns, but we would want to actually merge the columns. How do we merge the columns? Okay, so what we are going to do, we are going to use the same data, but we are going to break the data set into the different columns, and then we can now go ahead and merge the column. So we are going to create a new data frame, okay, in which we will go into the hints data set in which we loaded, and then we said we need from 2 to the 4th column. So in other words, we need from the personal ID, quality of care, and then the health insurance columns, okay? And then for all the rows, so remember, we are only focusing on the columns, so let's run it. Okay, so there's it. And if you want to be sure, you can actually again use the names function to actually say, okay, the names of the hints 1, which if you run it, you are going to see you have this, okay? Then now we are also creating another data from the same hints data, which we are actually choosing data from 15 to 17 column, okay? So there's the 15 column is smoke all the way to the 17 column, representing what? Average drink per week, okay? So again, we are using the square bracket to actually do that selection. So now that data have been loaded, okay? So it has, again, it has three variables within that data set, which means three columns, okay? And then whenever you are merging columns, it is important to note that you have the same number of observation, which is very important. And more so, you also have to make sure that the identification of the data observations are the same. So in other words, make sure each row is representing the same person in which you are actually going to measure the data of the column, right? So now, given that we have the same number of rows, we can now go ahead and then merge the column. So we are creating a new data set, which we call it merge call hint data 1, 2. It means we are just saying we are merging the data we created, which is the hints data 1, hints data 2. We are coming to merge it. And we are merging it using a function called the cbind, okay? That's the function we are using. So we said we are creating this, the new data we are creating, merge, and we are assigning it to, okay, so we say cbind of what? The hints data 1 and then hints data 2. We use comma to separate it, okay? So let's run that line of code. And then let's see the head. So now you can see that data is also active in the environment section of the R Studio. But we can look at also the head of that data, or even maybe the names of that data first. So let's look at the names of the data, which is merge. Okay, so can select it and then we can run it. So there we have it, okay? So we have, it means we have 6 different columns, which is 6 variables, okay? And then also we can look at the head of that data. The head gives us the first 6 observation of the data set, okay? So here the first 6 observation of the data set. So that's the data we successfully merged, okay? Now also, you can also merge the data by the rows, okay? So here's the situation in which we have made the column of the data set, bearing in mind that the rows have to bear the same ID to ensure that you are assigning the columns to the same individual in the data, okay? Now, in terms of the rows, we can also merge the rows of the data set. And to merge the row of the data set, you have to be also, you are ensuring that the data has the same column, okay? Whenever you are merging the row, you are ensuring that the data, they are having the same column. So in other words, if it is, if you are dealing with, let's say, age for one data set, and then age for another data set, you are going to merge the 2 data sets, they all have to be under what age. So first of all, we are creating a new data frame from our hints data. And within that data, we are actually selecting some number of rows, which is, we are selecting the first 50 observation, which is from that 1:50 means the first 50 observation of the data set. And then we are choosing the column 2 to 4, okay? All right, so let's run it. So we can check our, we can decide to look at the dimension of the data set. Or if you look at here, we can actually see the dimension of the data, hence 3. The dimension is what? 50 observation and 3 variables, okay? And the 3 variables, we can also, again, you can just use the names to actually look at, hence what? 3. Let's run it. And we have what? 3 columns, okay? And then if you want to, you can use the dimension to actually look at again to see the dimension of the data set, which is also given here under the environment section. So we have 50 rows and what? 3 columns. In other words, 50 observations and then 3 variables. Okay, let's create another data set in which we are calling it hints data 4. And then with that data, we are actually selecting the number of rows, which is from 500 to 650. So in other words, we are selecting about we are selecting about 51 observations from the hints data. But again, we are using the same column, which is from column 2 to what? Column from column 2 to column 4 of the hints data. Okay. So now let us run it. So again, if you look at data 4, hence data 4 in the environment section, it is having how many data? So we selected from 500 to 650, which means 151 observation, and then 3 variables, okay? And we remember now it's the same column we selected for when hence data 3, when we actually created that data 3, right? Okay. So again, you can actually use the dimension, use the names to actually, first of all, the names is even more important. Let us look at the names of this hence 4 data, okay? Let's run it. Okay, there we have. So the hence 4 and then the hence 3 and then hence 4, they have the same what? The same column, right? Which is patient ID, quality of care, and health insurance, okay? But then we assume hence 3 is one data set and hence 4 is also another data set. But now we want to merge to get more observation for our analysis. So this is a situation in which you might want to increase the sample size of your data set to perform your analysis, okay? So we are looking at having 50 observation here for the hence 3 data we created and having 151 observation for the hence 4 data we created. So now let us go ahead and merge them. So we are going to merge using what is called R-bind, okay? So, and that is, it allows us to merge rows, okay, or observations in the data set. Okay, so now we are going to name the new data set as merge row, hence 3-4, okay? And then we are using the function R-bind, which means we are going to merge hence 3 and then hence what? Hence 4. Again, before you merge, make sure you have the column of the data are the same variables, okay? They are the same before you can merge, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and merge. There we go. So now we can actually look at the dimension of that data in which we merge, which is now we have 203 observation with 3 columns, which is the same column. We can actually look at the columns or the variables, which is we have this as the what? As the columns of the data set we have, right? So there's how you can actually merge rows, okay, of different data sets, bearing in mind the column variables have to be the same. Then also, we can also use the merge function. We have a function called the merge function to actually merge a data set, okay? So let's create a new data set, which we are going to again call that data set. We are going to call that data set hint data 5, okay? So, and then we are going to again taking the data set from the original data, which we are looking at variables from the second to fourth column of the data set, okay? So let's run. So, okay, all right. So we can actually look at the head of this hence data 5, which give us, again, these are the first 6 observations. Now let us create another data set from that hence data again. And then that data set, we are actually, this time we are actually merging columns, okay? So we are creating a data set and then we are using the column 2 and then we are actually choosing from 15 to the 17th column, right? Now, the reason why we are using column 2 is, again, the column 2 represent the patient ID, okay? And 15 to 17 represent different variables in the data set, okay? And now we are naming it as what? Hence data 6, okay? Again, selecting from the original data set. Let us run that line of code. Okay, and then let us see this column. Okay, so now we have the patient ID, we have smoking, weekly moderate exercise, and then average drink per week. Okay, so these are the different variables we have. Now, when we are going to use the merge function, the merge function allows us to have an identified ID for the 2 data set, which allow us to be able to merge the two data sets. So the merge function is going to use that ID, which is the same for the two data sets, to merge the data set, okay? So now we are going to say that, okay, merge call, which is we are merging the column by the ID of the patient, okay, or of the observation. And then, so we are merging in 6 and 5 and 6. That's the name I gave it, but you can give it a different name. Okay, so with the merge function, we are merging data 5, we are merging data 6 by the ID of the patient. And this was data 5. Data 5 have the ID of the patient. Data 6 also have the ID of the patient. And that allows us to be able to merge them, because it's going to identify the same ID and now merge the column accordingly. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that line of code. Now, next we can look at the head of the data set. So there's the head of the data set, where now you can see initially the HIN 5 has quality of care and then health insurance, and it has the patient ID. And then the HIN 6, the data 6 of the HINs, it has smoking, weekly minute moderate exercise, and average drink per week. So now by ID, so now it was able to identify the ID of the patient and give us only all the observation. So we have the ID, and now we have the columns meshed. So that's how you can actually use the merge function to also merge a data set. But before you do that, you have to have an identifier ID which correspond to the two data set the same, right? Now you can also use the dplyr, okay? Now before you use the dplyr, you might have first of all install the tidyverse package or the dplyr package, okay? I have already installed the dplyr package, so I will just call the dplyr and then make use of it. So now I have loaded the package or activated the package. So now it's ready. So with that, I'm going to create a new data set, okay? So let's say I'm going to call that data, which is going to overwrite the previous HINTS1 data we created, okay? So we are going to have HINTS data 1. Now we go into the data set, the original data, using this percentage and then greater than sign, okay? That allows it to go into the data. And then we are going to select patient ID and select the age of the patient, okay? And that's for HINTS1. And then for HINTS2, again, we go into the data set using this sign or function, and then we go into the data set to select, again, patient ID and gender, okay? So let's run that line of code, okay? So we can actually say, give me the names of what? HINTS1, and that will give us, so we have patient ID and age only, and then give me the names of HINTS2, okay? Again, that gives us patient ID and what? Gender. Now we are going to merge them, okay? And then the dplyr has a function which is called the left join function. And the left join function is going to join these two data sets using the ID of the what? Of the patient. Just as the merge function earlier on, but this time we are using a package called the dplyr, okay? So now we can now go ahead and create that data set, which we said merge HINTS 1 and 2, right? 1, 2. So the function that we are using is left underscore join, okay? Once you start typing that, so we can say that merge, so underscore, let's say, HINTS 1, 2, okay? Then we are going to assign that to left underscore left. So left underscore what? Left underscore join. Okay, so you hit it. And then now you'll be able to what? put in hints 1 and hints 2. So we say, so, oops. Okay. So in the data we have, so we hints 1, comma, and then we have what? Hints 2. And then we are going to be able to merge that data using the what? The ID of the patient, of the person, okay? I keep on saying patient. Okay, the ID of the person, let's just go. So now we can go ahead and run that line of code. So now it's ready, right? So now we can go ahead and basically look at the head of the data. And then the head of the data is what? Merge. So we have the data here. So that's give us the first sex observation. So now we've been able to merge age and gender into one data set based on what? The patient ID. And that uses the what? The dplyr package, okay? And then we can, of course, you can look at the dimension of the data set. So merge, we can look at the dimension of the data, okay? And then, of course, if you want to know the number of rows, you can say that you want to know n row, okay? How many rows we have in the data set, if that's the only you want to know, okay? So there's it, okay. So there's how you can actually utilize the dplyr as a means of also combining different data set, okay, or merging data set together. Okay, I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in another lecture in which we'll continue with other aspect of data wrangling. See you.